When people hear I bought a home without a big down payment, they usually expect some sort of trick, some secret program, or some loophole, or some overnight solution. But that isn't how this story works because it's not about shortcuts. It's about living within your means, making intentional choices, and planning ahead. So that some of that stuff isn't easy. But I helped one family who bought a home without a big down payment. Now, see, this family wasn't from a really high income. They didn't have perfect credit and they didn't have a huge savings sitting around when they started to work with me. What they did have was a really clear goal. They wanted stability for their family. They wanted a home where the payment felt comfortable and they wanted to buy and they wanted to buy without putting themselves in a tight financial position. So instead of rushing, we focused on some of the basic things. See, one of the most important decisions they made was choosing to live within their means before buying. And that meant a couple of things. They needed to be honest about their monthly spending. They needed to cut back where it mattered and avoid having lifestyle upgrades just because they could. They didn't try to live like homeowners before they actually were homeowners. And so they focused on a couple of different things while they could build up that cushion for their down payment. And that cushion eventually was able to help them with their down payment and the closing cost funds they needed. They didn't save it perfectly. It didn't happen fast, but they did a little bit at a time and it was consistent. See, each month they set aside what they could, not with what sounded impressive. Some months were better than others, and that was okay because life is in session for everyone. But the key to all of this is that they had a purpose. They knew they weren't just hoping. They knew they could buy a home someday. They just were working on the plan towards that. And so one of the smartest things they did was to talk to me early on. And they learned a couple of different things. What down payments actually were available to them, how much they needed for closing costs, and what comfort monthly payment looked like for them. And that information changed everything. Instead of guessing, they had a real target. And when they had a target, it made the savings feel a little more manageable. They could have stretched. They could have chosen a higher price point. They could have used every dollar they had to make this work, but they didn't. They wanted a couple of different things. They knew it was important to have room for maintenance of a home, room for emergencies that were going to come up in life, and some room to breathe so they could really enjoy life. They understood that buying a home was just the beginning, not the finish line. And so when it came to their time to buy, the process felt calm. They weren't scrambling for funds. They weren't surprised by the closing costs associated with mortgage loans. They weren't stressed about the payment, and not because the process was easy, but because they knew what to expect and they were prepared through all of it. So no, they didn't buy with a big down payment. They bought with a solid plan for their home and their future. See, I tell this story because it's not unique. I hear this same story all the time. It's repeatable over and over because this is the thing. Living within your means matters. Saving intentionally matters. And understanding your numbers early makes home ownership possible and even easier than you imagine. So if you're watching this and thinking, well, I don't have a big down payment either, the next step isn't about pressure. It's about gaining clarity for your situation. And that's where my buyer strategy call can help you. See, it helps you understand the realistic down payment options, how to plan for closing costs, and create a savings strategy that fits your life. See, you're never going to come to me and feel judgment or rush, just a simple plan. You don't need a big down payment, but you do need to be realistic and having the right expectations, a little bit of discipline in your choices, and a plan that will actually work for your life. And that's something you can start building today.